All right, so welcome. We're here with Peyton Smith from over at Fourth Radical, the YouTube
Hey
channel,
guys.
and we're here today to talk about the census. So what's going on with the census is we know before Trump wanted to put a question on the census about immigration. It wasn't allowed to happen. So now they're just coming out in what is just pretty much just blatantly uh, dishonesty, where they're saying, oh, well, here's why we're trying to do this with the census, but it's really about trying to keep the reapportionment from helping the Democrats when they count again. So after the 2010 census, there was a ton of gerrymandering around the country. This is apparently what's going to happen this time around, is that they're just going to try to not count certain populations, even though it's pretty clear cut in the Constitution that it says you're counting people. It doesn't say you're counting citizens. It doesn't say you're counting
Right.
white people. It just says you're counting human beings, which kind of makes sense to me. If you've got a certain amount of people in a city, those people are human beings and they need to be accounted for. And so, whether they're actually citizens or not, they're still human beings that are existing in that city. And, you have to account for that. Yeah, so this is part of what Trump is doing, where he's coming in, he's trying to make a whole bunch of changes now. So he's working with the lawyer that basically wrote up the stuff for Bush that allowed Bush to essentially conduct torture. That's the same person they're dealing with right now, and they're trying to push a whole bunch of stuff through that maybe is not so constitutional. I mean, this thing is clearly not constitutional. No one thinks it's going to be around years from now. I guess the idea is you push it out there right now, and maybe it won't work its way through the courts in time to be stopped for the current situation, and they're just throwing a Hail Mary hoping this is going to work. I don't know. What do you think, Peyton?
Yeah, so this is really similar to what the Alabama Attorney General did back in 2000 or 2018, like 2 years ago, where, this was an issue for him in his state of being worried about losing congressional seats because that was the possibility at the time. Still might be a possibility, although maybe a little bit less likely. So they were suing, saying that, well, we shouldn't have undocumented immigrants being included on the census. He whipped up this fuss claiming that this meant that like Alabamans or Alabamians, I'm not sure entirely, that that basically that this is them losing their right to vote, that they no longer have fair or equal representation because of the fact that undocumented immigrants are not being included and counted on the census, and this was rejected. And so now this is being brought back up after, of course, we saw last year when the court rejected Donald Trump's possibility of including a census question. So this is basically like an attempt to circumvent the fact that the court already struck down their first attempt at it. Now they're just trying to do it in another way. And I will say real quick before we go back to you, Chris, I just want to say that I'm proud of my neighboring county of Arlington County that joined a lawsuit to sue Donald Trump and sue the White House, sue the federal government on this attempt. Really happy, and I hope to see my county of Fairfax County joining that lawsuit as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the thing that's so disappointing for me is the fact that there's no way to argue that this is in line with rule of law, right? He keeps coming out and saying
Right.
he wants to keep the peace and help people and rule of law and all that kind of stuff. This is clearly just, they're just sort of going to lower and lower levels of, we're going to do whatever we can, right? Him and Barr and this lawyer, I forget his name, they're just going to write whatever they can, legal justifications for trying to do things that they know are never going to stand. They just hope that by the time it gets shot down, that's going to be in February or March or something, not in October.
Right, and because if you can disrupt it, if you can, get maybe even just a few people off the census or discourage a few people from possibly taking the census who may be undocumented immigrants because they're worried about, getting, picked up by ICE or something like that, even if those fears are entirely unjustified, you create those fears, then you end up creating advantages. It goes back to that Alabama case because it does seem like this is an instance where undocumented immigrants does seem to primarily benefit Democratic states, at least with large cities, California, especially in Los Angeles County, as well as parts of New York as well. The states which are set to be hurt by this are likely Alabama, West Virginia, and possibly Rhode Island as well. Now, Rhode Island, of course, is a Democrat state, but, it is a situation where, if you can create that disruption, it can possibly benefit Republicans. But I actually don't think that that's what it's primarily about. Actually, Chris, I think that that's part of it, right? That's part of why they're able to gin up that kind of stuff for Republicans. I think that this is actually just about this election, right? So initially the Trump White House and I'm not sure if it was technically the White House or Donald Trump himself came out and basically said, "Oh, well, this isn't entirely true." But then they sent out a campaign email, literally saying that exact thing, saying that like,
Right.
sign this petition to, say that you don't think that undocumented, I think they used the term illegal aliens, should be included on the census. And of course, by the way, guys, if you don't know what campaigns do when they ask you to sign, like, sign a pledge or, to vote in some nonsense poll, they're just data collecting so that they can ask you for more money. So that's why that's why the Trump campaign is doing this, because it'll gin up money. They can, raise more they can fundraise better and then get a longer donor list of people who might be interested in this. And we're already seeing the Trump campaign jump on that.
Right. Like Trump's birthday card that YouTube kept trying to get me to sign when it was Trump's
Yes.
birthday.
Yes. I got so many advertisements telling me I needed to sign Trump's birthday. I'm not going to sign your birthday card, Donald Trump.
Yeah, not going to happen. One of the things that bothers me, like I'm so angry at Mitch McConnell. I just sometimes have trouble letting this go, where the fact that I no longer completely trust our judiciary because it's been, Obama, they kept Obama from filling his positions fairly. I mean, from him being able to fairly fill his positions, and they're jamming him full of people, not just that they're conservative, they're jamming him full of people who apparently are not even qualified, don't even have the right experience for these jobs. And you get people like Kavanaugh that just seem like they're just going to toe that party line no matter what. They are there to find a way to make the law fit the ends, not the other way around, which is what a judge is supposed to do, which is, that sounds very dark, but that's already what we have Trump and Barr and this lawyer doing, is writing things that it's because they have a specific outcome and they're trying to interpret the law to fit that. So I guess my concern is seeing that in the judiciary when these things are challenged in court, because that's the whole reason McConnell's doing it. I mean, it's not like he's packing these courts because it's fun. He's doing it because he wants certain lawsuits to fail.
Yeah, one of the things that always surprised me and shocked me, or I don't know if shocked is the right word here, but is to see Republicans actively doing this kind of thing where, they're trying to push judges for a specific ideological cause, when it's always Republicans you hear the most talking about this idea of tradition, this idea of venerating tradition, venerating the law. But then it's Republicans that are the first ones to not do that thing. And it does surprise me actually quite a lot, because you think that, like, if you're venerating tradition, if you're venerating different texts, you're not going down this, what Jordan Peterson called like the postmodern system of where, there's no real facts in the world, that everything is ideology, which, by the way, isn't as radical of a claim as it sounds when you actually like read in like what those people are claiming. But, like, these are the people who are supposed to be rejecting postmodernism. They're supposed to be the vanguard that stands at the gates of history yelling "stop," in the great words of that conservative who I can't remember the name of. That's the role of conservatism. But yet here they are being the first ones to stand at the gates of history yelling "come," clearly.
Right. Yeah, it's weird. It's like the whole gun culture. One of the reasons you regularly hear about, why we need to have so many guns is when the government starts turning its forces on the people, and yet you're not hearing those people mad right now that Portland is being filled up with militants, right?
Right, they're picking up people and putting them in unmarked vans, and you're not hearing the 2A people go on a right. Like, why do you have? I thought the whole reason why you had guns was so that you could stop this kind of thing from happening. Right. But here you are backing them up, cheering them on. And I just want to say one more quick thing about this whole census thing. There was a 2018 Yale study which estimated that anywhere between 16.2 and 29.5 million people are undocumented immigrants in this country. Now, that study is a little bit higher than some of the others. There's a Pew study out estimating that's around 11 million people. That one is a little bit older than the Yale one. But I just want to point out that range in that Yale study. Anywhere between 16.2 million and 29.5 million. Now, again, maybe those numbers are high, maybe they are, but the range, that's the important part. These are smart people studying this, and they couldn't come to a clear number. 16.2 million and 29.5 million. That's a really big range, and it tells you that we're not doing a good job counting our people, counting people who live in this country When we say that they're undocumented, literally we have a hard time counting them. The best academic studies, the best minds in this country can't even figure out how many people live in this country. I think that's a problem.
Yeah, and it seems like even if this wasn't going on, I mean, I could see if you were an individual who was undocumented, you might be a little bit nervous about answering the census anyways, right? If when you hear this stuff
Right.
coming out of the president every day. So even if this doesn't work, he's already put that fear in a number of people who are going to say, I better not respond to this census.
Right, because some undocumented people do respond to the census, and by the way, like you're not going to get picked up from
Right.
if anyone watching, you're not going to get picked up from ICE for responding to a census question. You are protected. You are protected from that. But there are a lot of undocumented people that don't fill out the census, and so again, like there are ways of sort of guesstimating based on previous census data how many of these people must or must not be undocumented, even if you don't know specifically which ones and which ones are not. And so that's sort of how the data is, how people try to figure that out. But again, guys, like I just think that this is a massive problem. Like we literally do not know how many people are living in the shadows of this country, how many people are paying taxes, law-abiding people, and then they're ruled by members of Congress who they can't vote for. I think that's I think we're pushing into a really big, really big problem. 30 million people possibly who are living in the shadows of a country that's supposed to be a democracy. I don't know. That sounds like a major problem to me.
Yeah, I agree. All good points, Peyton. Thanks for joining for the conversation. Make sure to head over to Fourth Radical YouTube channel and check out Peyton's videos. He's got great stuff going on over there. Make sure to head on over there, watch that stuff. Thanks again, Peyton, for joining us, and we will see you next time.